So you want to move to a new state? Well, I want to help you. In this video, I'm going to go over some top tips for if you're considering relocating to a new state. If you're new to the channel, I've been a lender for 18 years. My team's one of the top purchase teams in America. We relocate people across the country every single day. Not just because we do a ton of military loans, but also because that's what's happening in America right now. Ever since COVID, honestly, it started a little bit before COVID. So you had this first migration change when they changed the tax rules with the SALT cap. I did a different video on that, so check it out if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But we started seeing people in high tax states start to go, whoa, this is more expensive now. And it was because of the SALT tax cap that became active in 2018. Then you had COVID hit, more people could work remote. A lot of jobs have stayed remote. And what we've seen is people have gone, hey, where can I live where I can actually afford to live? The sad part is there are certain parts of the country where it is so darn expensive that you could even be making $200,000 a year and you couldn't have a decent house. Like you couldn't even buy a house. So we are seeing people move to more affordable areas. If you look at the migration maps, Texas, Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, those are the ones that we're consistently seeing a lot of. But at the same point, it's like Kentucky has started popping off. Ohio has been going wild. Like we are seeing Americans vote with their feet on where they want to live for affordability, which I think is amazing. And I love being part of that journey. So I want to start this video off with the number one thing you need to think about before you start talking to a real estate agent in another state. What is your income? Look, if you're retired and you get a pension, Social Security, or if you're on disability, easy, because that can go to any state. But if, let's say, you're a nurse in California and you want to move to Texas, I can't use your California nursing income in Texas, because you can't commute there. So as a lender, we have to look at reasonable commute. And what I'll hear sometimes is, I've been a nurse or a doctor, whatever it is, right? For 20 years, I can get a job without even trying. I'm like, great, I need a job offer letter. Because lenders can't lend based on the odds that you'll get a job in that area. Also, there's certain industries where you get paid less in certain states. Some employers pay based off of cost of living. So you may make more in one state, dramatically more than you do. I mean, look, guys, I know that nurses in Texas do not make what nurses in California make. Nurses in New York make a heck of a lot more than nurses in Florida, right? But there's also cost of living that goes along with both of those. So you do want to look at, okay, what is my job going to be in the new state? And if you're like, I don't even know where I want to live yet, Jen. Look, before you meet with a real estate agent, before you get pre-approved, I would recommend you've got to narrow that down. If you're not retired, if you don't have income that's coming from, remote or online or something where you don't have to be in an office, if you're going to be in an office, you've got to figure out where you want to live. If you're a remote worker, for instance, super easy. If you can work remote and you can work anywhere in the country and it doesn't affect your pay, easy peasy. There you have more flex. But if you're going to need an in-person job, you do want to get that lined up before you start looking at houses and before you get pre-approved. So if you're trying to narrow down the area, visit the areas you're considering, figure that out, check out the job market, because what you might find as well is, oh, you really love this town, but there's no good jobs. Okay, so job is number one. As a lender, what can I accept? Remote work, easy peasy. We do verify with your employer that you do work remote and that you can work from any state. If you're like, Jen, I got a job lined up, I'm good, cool, I can use your job offer letter as long as it's not contingent and it has a start date. So if you have a job offer letter, send us that. We'll tell you we'll be like, yep, nope, yep, nope. There's certain things that can mess up a job letter, like if it's per diem or you're on call or there's no guarantee of income. But most of the time, the job offer letters I see, they work, or we just say, hey, this is contingent on a background check. Can you please do your background check? And ask HR for an updated one. So the first thing to know is that it's easier than you think. So remote, super easy, retired, super easy, disability, super easy. If you need to line up a job, you can do it. I see people do it every single day, okay? Now what? Cost of property taxes and insurance. So if you're looking at moving to a new state, a new county, it's important to look at both the homeowner's insurance and the property taxes. Sometimes people think they're moving to a new area and it's going to be so much less expensive, but because of the property taxes and the insurance, they're really not saving money. And if you're looking at relocating to a different state, because you want to save money, like let's make sure you're actually saving money. So what I would recommend is if you know what county you're going to be moving to, go to the county tax assessor and look at how they do property taxes. One of the big things I saw during COVID, because originally my business was based in California, so I've had a lot of people move out of California to other states when they were looking for affordability. In California, with your property taxes, whether it's an owner-occupied second home or investment, once you buy that house, it gets reassessed immediately, and then it's capped on how much it can go up every year. Not every state does that. Very few actually do. And in some states, it may have a cap, but the cap may be only if you're owner-occupied. There's other states where you may be like, well, Jen, I don't really want to move to another state, but I want to buy in another state. Well, if you're an investor, your taxes might be more. So understanding property taxes and how they work is very important to your long-term financial stability. Okay, what else? Those are honestly, truly the two big things. You know, the other stuff is more like weather. Make sure you're comfortable with the weather. If you're doing something dramatic and you haven't spent time in that area yet and you have the luxury of being able to rent for a little bit before you buy, I do suggest that. I moved from California to Florida a couple of years ago and I rented for the first 2 years. I did that because I had never lived in a humid climate and Florida is humid. I had never lived in a climate that was that hot with humidity. That's an adventure. And I didn't really know what I was getting into, but I loved it. And now I just actually closed on a house in Florida, but I gave myself the grace and time to make sure it was a good call. Now look, if it was somewhere that I was really comfortable with and I knew the area or it's somewhere I always wanted to live, maybe I'd vacationed there a few times and really liked it, I would have bought. But in this case, it was a pretty rash decision, so renting made more sense at first. Give yourself grace to do what fits you best. There's no one answer. It's not like, well, if I rent, what if housing prices go up? They could. Well, if I buy, what if housing prices go down? They could. You know, no one knows right now where the market's going to go. If we look at history, historically, the housing market's gone like this, you know, and look, most of the country still has inventory shortages. We still have a frozen market. You know, it could take you, let's say you're moving from California to Texas, that's easier to find houses in because there's so many new builds. But if you're moving from California to certain parts of Florida, guys, it took me 2 years to find the house that I ended up buying because the area that I was looking in, it has no inventory. So it's important that you give yourself grace. And most importantly, you make sure that this move, whether it's for the short term or the long haul, you're prepared before you fall in love. So give us a call. Let's talk about getting pre-approved. Let's get you pre-approved. Let's go over the numbers so you know what to expect with that state in terms of taxes and insurance. Then go shopping. Thanks for watching. Questions, comments, give us a call, 786-933-2077.